Hello guys, welcome to Koi Academy. Guys, in this video, we'll be talking about very important concept in sociology, and that is the concept of ideal type. But remember that it's also a very confusing topic area. So after watching this video of 3 to 4 minutes, you will never be able to you will never confuse this concept again. Okay, so just stay with me. So an ideal type is not meant to refer to best or to a moral ideal. Okay, of course when you see this word ideal type, the thing that comes to your mind is that it's a thing that is best in the characteristics. Well, that's not the case. It's not about the best or the most moral thing. Okay, you could also talk about an ideal type brothel or an ideal type chapel. Now, of course, if a sociology is going to study the widespread existence of brothels in a society, then first he needs to study what is an ideal type brothel. That is, what are the key characteristics of a brothel. For example, there will be lots of prostitutes and people coming to enjoy themselves and those things, like, right? So after they have this idea about what a typical an ideal type brothel is, then they can study this phenomena, why people come there, what are the reasons for there's so many brothels in a particular society, and not many brothels in any other society. So let's take the example of also capitalism. For example, if a sociologist wants to study that why capitalism or Western capitalism did not take its root in the developing countries. Now, for this to study, I mean, a sociologist first would have to construct an ideal type of capitalism. Now, what could be an ideal type of capitalism? I mean, what could be the typical characteristics which would be used as a yardstick for capitalism? For example, one could argue that in a capitalism there is private ownership of resources. People own the resources and then they utilize it to make goods and services. So there is profit motive. People work for profit, and they pursue their own self interests, and there is lack of government intervention in the free market. There is a concept of laissez-faire. Okay, so there is property ownership. So these could be described as the ideal type of a capitalist economy, capitalism. Now, if you want to study the theory that why capitalism did not take roots in the developing countries, now you could use the ideal type of capitalism and draw comparison. For example, in the developing countries, property rights are not very strong. There are people grab each other's properties, and courts are not there to enforce those rights. You could also talk about that in the developing countries, governments excessively involve themselves in the free market economy because they want to pursue their own social objectives. So yes, you could say that if government exceedingly involves in the free market, then that is not the case. That is a considerable deviation from an ideal type capitalism, and that could be the reason why capitalism could not developing in developing countries, could not take roots in the developing countries. So you get the idea that ideal type could be talked about everything. For example, capitalism, some people consider it bad and some people consider it a good thing. People back considering it bad might say that capitalism is exploitative and all those things. But for a sociologist, it does not matter if people consider a social phenomena or a social institution good or bad. Ideal type, which Weber developed, is about what are the key constituents, key characteristics of that institution or that social action. For example, Weber talked about bureaucracy. And now, some people consider bureaucracy as a good thing, whereas others consider that bureaucracy is not a good thing because it results in impersonality and inefficiency. But those are beside the point. What Weber talked about is that there are certain key defining characteristics of bureaucracy, and that is what is called ideal type bureaucracy. Rest follows. Okay, first you have to define what are the typical characteristics. So in the last line, you could see this definition sort of thing, that ideal type is the analytical construct that provides a basic method for comparative study. So yes, once you construct an ideal type, you can use it as a yardstick to compare the phenomena. Just I talked about that, comparing the ideal type of capitalism and why it did not take root in the developing countries. So I hope you got a fair idea about what this ideal type means and what Weber was talking about when he referred to the concept of ideal type. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe.